Is it working on this, though?
Is it working on this, though?
Seen the picture of the
And we're live. Episode 5. Technically 5. 4.5. Anyways, hello, ladies and gents. We are here with Sage Thornock, otherwise known as Spider Monkey.
Yeah, man. What's up, guys? How you doing today?
Doing good. So, little explanation. We only have 2 microphone cables, but we have 3 mics. So me and Carter will be sharing a mic. So if you hear, like, rustling of the mic or a muffled voice, that's why. So I'm going to hand the mic to Carter now, and he can say a few words.
Yo, yo, yo. What's up, A&L Nation? We're pumped to be with you. Hit that subscribe button. Turn that. Is it 20 into 20? Is it 21 subscribers? Probably like 1 million by now.
Probably,
But
man.
were you checking real quick? Yeah, no. Follow us on Instagram at TheAndersonLindhardtShow. Yeah, no. We're excited to be here. We're in 24. Turn that 24 into 25. Dang, that's like half of a quarter. I don't know math. That's a quarter of 100.
Damn.
Wow.
That's sweet, man.
There you go. Started from the bottom.
Yeah, man. That's awesome.
So we're here with our boy Sage. We served our missions together. At one point, the 3 of us were all companions. So this is a reunion of sorts.
Yeah.
We were companions for, was it 3 weeks? The 3 of us were all companions. We also had another companion with us, Elder Van Leuven. So I'm actually going to talk with him tomorrow. We have a group call set up. Yeah, I can tell him to get on it. But
Dude, you got married quick. That's awesome, man.
yeah, he's the man. He's probably still super buff.
Dude, yeah, he was jacked.
Dang.
First question I have for you, Sage, is, so you are like a cold call legend at Tukios. Seriously, like Trent, who is, he works at the company that Sage and I work at. He's like over the cold callers, and he like praises Sage's name. He's like, Sage hit his cold call numbers consistently. So like, what was the mindset, staying consistent? Because cold calling's tough.
Yeah, definitely. And have you like kind of given like a backdrop a little of like what Tukios is?
Here, hold that mic like.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
As
sweet.
long as that's green.
Yeah, so have you ever talked about like Tukios? Really?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a cool background, so yeah, give that to us.
Yeah, so basically like when I was a senior in high school, there was an internship program at my high school, and I thought it would be pretty cool to kind of get some hands-on experience out in the work field and also get paid for it. So initially I actually got called to do like an internship at Weber State University for like the athletic program, but I didn't really like it. So I kind of stopped doing it there because the dude that like I was working with just left me in a room and was like, all right, figure out something to do for a couple hours.
Dang.
And I was like, what the heck? So I told the internship guy, I was like, yo, like I don't like this. Let's do something more efficient. So he's like, well, there's this really small company named Tukios. It's like a software company. Maybe you could try it out there. So yeah, I was like 18 years old. I went and got interviewed by the owner of Tukios, Curtis Funk. And at that time, Tukios was like a tiny company. There was probably 10, 15 employees. It was a startup, but it was going for probably 4 or 5 years at that point. And it was a cool experience just being an intern there. And then I went on my mission. Curtis reached out to me while I was out on my mission saying, hey man, if you want a job when you get back, we'll be here. So I got home, and there was probably 20, 25 employees. So the business kept growing and growing. And I got hired there when I got home from my mission and worked for about 6 months. I was just a sales assistant, so I was just helping a dude out with his territory.
Was that Landon?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so I helped out Landon with his territory, and then the company kept growing, and Curtis was like, hey, there's actually a new position opening up. You'll be cold calling people or like businesses that we work with. It pays a little better than what you're doing right now if you want to try it out. So me and another kid just tried it out for a couple months, and yeah, man, we were just straight cold calling. And like, if you're in sales, like, it's probably a lot similar to like knocking doors.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, you just like basically got to send it. And it's just
Yeah.
like, they don't want to be bugged. So you got to figure out a way to like open up a conversation without annoying them, type of
Mhm.
thing.
Yeah.
So like, I just was trying to learn the ropes, and me and Nick probably for 6 months just cold called and tried to figure out our own path. And then Trent got hired, and then more SDRs or more cold callers got hired. There was probably 6 of us at a time. Yeah, we were cold calling, probably making 50, 60 calls a day.
Dang. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah,
With the customers, I've been making like 30 a day.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
way less.
So and Tukios, what it is, like, for a quick backdrop, it's just what it was initially, it was a tribute video software. So we'd sell software basically to funeral directors. Really weird, but there's a lot of money in it. So we would call funeral directors and basically try to get them to use our software to make videos for like the funeral. But now, since Tukios has gotten so big, we're actually opening up into a whole new ball game with technology, and honestly could make the company 10 times bigger and a lot wealthier. So
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, because, yeah, Sage reached out to me, like, I mean, I feel like it was kind of something that we knew, like, I don't know, I feel like
yeah,
it was kind of in like, hey, if they're ever hiring, like, let me
Yeah.
know. And in December, you hooked me up with Trent, and then I had a Zoom call with him, and then one with Curtis, and
Yeah.
so now I'm working there. But yeah, I had like I didn't even know what the company was called. People were
Yeah.
like, "So where are you working?" I'm like, "Dude, I don't know." Like, I just got some
Yeah,
job,
dude.
man. But like,
yeah,
I felt good about it. Like, my intuition felt good about
Yeah.
it, so I was going to do it. But yeah, it's like the funeral home industry. There's so much to it that you just don't think about. Like,
Yeah.
tonight I was at Riley and I went to Texas Roadhouse, and the manager, or so the waitress, was like asking us, how you doing? Like, where you guys from? And we're like, oh, well, we just moved here from Virginia. Like, I told her, I'm originally from Logan, but told him the whole story. She's like, oh my goodness, well, welcome to Layton. And so then the manager came like 5 minutes later, and she's like, we just wanted to welcome y'all to
oh no way.
to Layton, and she gave us like some ribs for free, like 2 ribs for free and stuff. They were really good. And then
dude.
anyway, she's like, so what do you do for work? And I just said, oh, I work at a software company in Ogden. It's called Tukios. And she's like, oh, what's the software? And I was like, well, it makes tribute videos for like the families of decedents. It's for funeral homes. And she said, oh, I worked for a funeral home.
No way.
And I was like, no way. Like, what did you do? She said, I did the makeup.
Oh,
And then she
wow.
just like went silent.
Yeah.
Anyways, she said it was a job someone had to do. And I'm like, yeah, you're
Yeah.
right. But yeah, it was like kind of cool to like talk with somebody who actually knew about the funeral industry. But it is like, anyone who does sales like knows there's like a certain mindset, and like sometimes it just whoops your butt.
Yeah.
So like in those moments where you just went like 30 calls and people were just short with you, was it just like a decision like at the beginning of the day that you just had decided you were going to call no matter what? So like that kept you going, or did you? I know Steven told me he, after every call and before every call, he says he has like these 3 affirmations he says to himself. Like, did you have something like that, like some
Yeah.
ritual or what?
So like my whole philosophy with like sales, because really I wasn't really into it, or really didn't know much about it, really until after my mission. I mean, on our mission we're teaching the gospel, and we're learning sales things, and we were huge into like psychology. I was always like huge into psychology of like human relations and communication and things like that. So I got home and sales came about, and I was like, man, I need to figure out my own philosophy. And like kind of what I've come up with so far is like I'm a huge like advocate of like competing against myself. Like going into work with all the other guys, I was never really worried about like being the best or like being the top rep each week. I just wanted to like be a better salesman myself every day type of thing. Like I went in every day being like, okay, how can I compete against myself? Like yesterday I did this. What can I do today that will make me more effective? And like I kind of went into every call and every day knowing like, hey, I just want to improve myself. And I feel like with that mentality, I wasn't so focused on like all the distractions of, oh crap, like my coworkers are doing this good, like I need to compete and be better than, like I was just like competing against myself. And I found myself like rooting my teammates on or like my coworkers on. Like when they were finding success, I was like, heck yeah, you guys are awesome. And like I honestly, like that's the vibe at Tukios. It's like, let's build each other up. We're in it together. Like if you have a good day, like heck yeah, like that's sweet. But it's never like an eye for an eye, like I got to be better than the next. And that's kind of like what I did with calls is, hey, if I've called 30 people or if I talk to so many people a day and it hasn't gotten anywhere, I'm trying to reevaluate with myself, like what's going on. Is it my own attitude? Is it the way I'm bringing about these conversations, or am I calling the wrong people at the wrong time? And like I was just always focused more on being consistent as like an individual. Like I didn't try to I wasn't like being self-centered, but I just was focused on like my mentality and how I could like go about it, myself. So I guess that brought about success for me,
How has, if it has, learning more about sales or learning more about just like how to better communicate with people, how has that affected your personal life? Because I've always thought it's like, because me and Reese talked a lot when he was doing summer sales about, because at one point we were both working for summer sales company. I was working as a graphic designer and he was out selling.
Yeah.
And so like we were both just around the community and we were just like, these sales principles are almost like just like how to communicate with people in like a positive way. So like how have you seen like some of the sales techniques that you've come up with affect your personal life?
I think like the two biggest things, and I've actually learned this in a book, and I've shared this with Reese a lot, just like that, How to Win Friends and Influence People. Like I live by that book. I don't know.
Yeah.
Who wrote that? Dale Carnegie.
Mm-hmm.
Like that is my favorite book. I think I was with you. I don't know if I was with you or Elder
Yeah,
Sharp.
you were with me when you got that, and I remember you like binge read it.
Loved that. And like the biggest thing I took away from that is just in human relations, everyone, like people around you, all they want to do is feel important or like feel valued. And like I feel like in sales, it's taught me that like everyone around you, like they want to feel important. So when you go about sales, like bringing value to their life or bringing a sense of importance to their life and just listening. Like I'm reading a book right now called Spin Selling, and in one of the paragraphs, it's like a successful salesman listens, he doesn't talk. And it's like, I feel like that carries weight into like life and like successful relationships or whatever it may be. Like sometimes it's good to just like be quiet and listen, and just hear what people have to say and validate that and make them feel important. I feel like that's kind of some of the things I've learned so far in sales.
Yeah. This is kind of unrelated, but I was just watching this, like, because I had one of those days yesterday where I was making a lot of calls and nothing was like happening.
Yeah.
And it's like so easy to just feel like flustered, but you do kind of, I like stopped and I was like, did that kind of evaluation. I'm like, okay, what's going on? Is it my thoughts? Is it my tone? Is it the wrong time that I'm calling these people? And there's like kind of a mixture of all. Yeah. Because it's kind of hard. Like sometimes you have to admit to yourself, you're like, yeah, my thoughts are trash.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's hard to turn them around when you just feel so like justified in your little like victim mind.
Yeah.
But anyways, I watched this little clip on YouTube by Jordan. Is it Belfort or Belfort? The Wolf of Wall Street. Like the real Wolf of Wall Street. Anyways, he was on this interview, and it's like a famous thing of his is like how to sell a pen.
Oh yeah.
So he'll say to like the best salesman, he'll be like, "Here, sell me this pen." And he says like a lot of salesmen will jump into, "Oh, well, you're gonna love this pen. It can write upside down. The ink lasts forever. Da 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 da. It's so smooth." But he's like, "No, the first thing I do is I say, are you in the market for a pen? And if they say no, then I say, all right, have a good day. I'm going to go find someone who's in the market for a pen." And I was like, okay, like I got to remind myself of that, where it's Like that's
Yeah.
totally a sales principle. I'm trying to think how that would apply into like real life. Like,
Yeah.
but in sales, it's so true. It's like he's like, don't try to shove a pen down someone's throat. Like if they're not
Yeah.
interested, leave them alone.
Yeah.
And that's kind of hard sometimes. Like, yeah, today I had a few people who were like, yeah, man, I'm just not interested in this. And I'm like, oh, all right.
And that's like, sorry to interrupt.
No, you're good.
Like that's the biggest thing. I feel like trying to find that balance between knowing when you're bugging, because like I personally, like I'm in sales, but like I hate going into the store and being pitched at or like being sold to. Like I know what they're doing, I see what they're doing, and like I respect what they're doing because I'm in that field.
It's hard.
And it's hard. Like I get what they're at, but like I feel like it's ironic that I'm in sales, but I get so bugged by it.
I think that's most
Yeah.
of the salespeople.
You know, so it's like trying to figure out a balance between like being real and like connecting, but also like getting your product out there. You know, it's just
You're like, I know the tricks you're trying to
Exactly.
to do. You're like, I'm only gonna buy this if I'm gonna buy this. Like,
Yeah.
you're not gonna sell this to me.
Yeah, like in cold calling, 'cause like in door to door, we obviously didn't have this, but in cold calling, a lot of times you hit answering services, which basically for those who don't know what an answering service is, it's like I didn't know this until Trent explained it to me. Like I knew they existed, but I didn't know how they operated. But like let's say it's like you own a company, and if you kind of like hire an answering service to pick up your phones when you're out, and the answering service could be across the country,
Mm-hmm.
but your calls will just go there if you're not in.
Yeah.
And the people, their only job is to get your number, get a message so that you don't call back, because they don't
Yeah.
want you to call back, pretty much is the way
Yeah.
I feel. And so I'll like call them, and you can kind of tell it's a dude. Like I remember you told me like, yeah, after a few weeks I just could tell. It's like I
Yeah.
can tell when they're answering service now, because they just don't sound like funeral
Yeah.
directors or secretaries. And they like soft close the crap out of you. They're like, they're like, yeah, you've reached the answering service. What was your number? And I'm like, oh gosh. And like sometimes I
Yeah.
just fall for the soft close, but
Yeah.
I'm like, I know what you're doing. I'm like, I'll just call him back. But yeah, it's like I try to find this balance, because some days I feel like I love sales, and other days I feel like I absolutely hate sales. And I'm like,
Yeah.
why am I doing this? Like,
Yeah.
I don't like bugging people, but I do like getting this product out there that's like the product that we're doing, like the
Yeah.
websites and the card service, like that's helping
Yeah.
people a lot. So I try to like remember that. I'm like, it's kind of a difficult balance for me. So I'm always trying to like pick people's brain, because some sales guys are just so like hardened, they just don't give a
Yeah.
crap, and they're just like, I'm just gonna go sell people. But I'm just interested to like talk to as many salespeople as I can and try to get like their personal philosophies on it, I guess.
I really wonder like what the psychology is behind like human interaction about like not wanting to be sold to. Like I just feel like it's in our instinct, like I know what you're doing, like don't try to sell to me, but it's like,
Yeah.
like there's something that like that block where you know what they're doing. I don't know if like it's just people naturally don't like being sold to, they kind of like wanting to make their own decision. I don't know if it's like pride deep down, I don't know what it is, but like
Yeah, it's interesting. Right now, I'm teaching seminary as my job, and they talk like, I don't know about you guys, what you guys were like in seminary, but like I really didn't like any of my teachers, and I was kind of a punk, and my mom would get called all the time, and like I did. I shouldn't have graduated, but okay. Fun fact: if you graduated from 2013 to 2019, all of your readings automatically got bumped up to 100%. So I don't know why they did that. So technically now I can have a clean conscience that I did all of my readings. But anyways, a big point of like emphasis in our trainings and stuff is trying to reach, students and kids that don't necessarily want to be there. And I think it's like kind of going into the sales principle. Like a lot of the times they just talk about love them today, or try and connect with them today so that you can teach them tomorrow.
yeah.
Or that you can be there for them tomorrow. Because it's like, I don't know, like if you can make someone feel special, like what you're talking about, like that, you
Yeah.
can't fake that.
Yeah.
And so I think that that's like, I don't know if that exactly goes into why people don't like to be sold, but if you're being genuine, it's pretty hard to not want to like have an interaction. I think that's probably where a lot of the thing, because if someone's like trying to be nice to you because they want you to, start
Yeah.
coming to church again, or they want you to buy this product, you're like, all right, I
Yeah.
see right through you.
Yeah. And that's the book I gave you. Remember The Go Giver? I don't know if you were able to.
I'm a quarter of the way through.
And that's kind of the mentality. I think it's just the mentality behind the salesman, because in the Go Giver, like, I would invite anyone to read that book. It's awesome.
It's like short. Like I
Yeah.
sat down for 30 minutes and I'm like
It's awesome.
probably about a third of the way through.
Yeah. So like what it is, it's essentially like this salesman that's working up at this high corporation, and he has to meet this quota before the quarter ends, and he's not meeting it. And long story short, he gets in contact with this really good mentor that's mentored a lot of people. And it goes through this story of him learning like what it means to bring value to people's lives. And I guess he just kind of realized that he was doing sales all wrong. Like he was in it for the numbers, he was in it for like the commission, but he wasn't really in it to bring like happiness and value to people's lives. And I think once he kind of learned and shifted his mindset, that's where he found success. So I thought it was cool.
Yeah, like the part I'm at the part where he just went to the restaurant with the mentor, and the mentor wanted him to meet the restaurant owner, and he said the restaurant owner started as a dude selling hot dogs on the street, and when the mentor was telling him about it, he's like, oh, you're gonna love the experience, or something about the experience from this guy.
Yeah.
And then that was like one of the first lessons that the guy learned, was that they weren't buying the hot dogs, they were buying the experience, because the guy was so friendly and they loved the experience with him. And that's really, it's like, because it's like with what we want to do in our lives, it's like we want to add value to other people's lives, and it's like, but we expect exchange for that, in a healthy way. It's like, I mean, that's how capitalism is run.
It's been interesting in a oh boy, here we go. But never mind. They all drink Starbucks, so it's like, no, I'm just kidding. But it's interesting. Like in a lot of my business classes, we talk about how when you're like selling a company, or you're pitching a company to people, a lot of the times, like, you can have the best idea in the world, but like it's not gonna do anything, because the investors, the people buying your company, they're really buying you. They're not like buying necessarily like your product. They're buying it because they believe in you and that you're going to get it done. And so it's been like interesting, because like, there can be like, salesmen is such a wide variety. Like there's just so many different types. And so it's like kind of interesting to think like, okay, well, if I'm just working on myself, doing my part, and I'm working hard, like you're going to be able to find success in it, because people are just going to be like, you're working on yourself, you're doing your part, and you're being true to yourself. People are going to be able to see that.
I think that's huge, like selling yourself. I had to write a paper. I'm actually getting a degree in professional sales. And it's actually it's like it's a cool degree, but it's really easy. And it's actually stuff I love doing. Like we're reading sales books, and like the assignments are like write a page paper of something like you learned, or take, like, it's actually stuff that I'm excited about.
And that's probably stuff like, that's like stuff that you would want to do anyway, because it's like you're trying to retain what you're reading.
Exactly.
So that's sweet, man.
Yeah, and that degree, like, it's sweet. Everyone at Tukios, like, probably 90% of the company is going through or have gone through that degree.
Yeah, because Holden,
like Wilson,
Wilson,
Logan, Landon, Curtis even got his degree.
Oh, really?
With like a minor in entrepreneurship or something. But like, it's a cool degree. But yeah, like I had to write a paper basically about selling yourself, and how that's like a huge percent of the sell is, especially in person to person. I'm sure summer sales, it's more applicable.
Yeah, door to door was like, because like the cold calling's a different game.
Yeah.
Like I can't see their face. It's less, I take things way less personal.
Yeah.
It's like someone hangs up on me, I'm like, all right. But yeah, door to door was really awesome, because it's like your body language was in play. And I believe your body language is still in play in like
they can hear.
Yeah, because your tone is affected by the way you're holding your body. But in door to door, it was like right in front of your face, like here I am, and yeah, it's a different ball game, man.
Yeah, definitely.
But like if you came off too salesy in door to door, you were kicked to the curb. But if you came off as like, hey man, like I'm just doing my job, like we're actually offering a good deal, I can just hook you up, just wanted, and then they'd just be like, okay, like how much? Like that's how most of my sales happen. But like Carter said, there's so many different types of salespeople. Like my manager had so much success in summer sales, and he was very like he would not give up on the sale.
Yeah.
He was like, 3 no's and then I'll give up.
Yeah.
And I was usually like, after the second no, I'm like, all right, man, like I'm really uncomfortable now. I'm just gonna leave.
Like on a phone, you can kind of push people like,
Yeah.
come on. But
Like,
like
come
in
on, I'll just
person,
set you up.
like they're staring you in the eye and you're just like, all right.
Yeah, like literally after they're like, well, I don't know if I'm interested. Like I gotta talk to my wife or something, which means like it's a smoke screen.
Yeah.
Like she's like, well, look, I'll tell you what. Like that was like my go-to like transition phrase. Well, look, I'll tell you what. I'll actually just do the first one for $99. And then I'd be like, and then he's like, no, man, I really can't. I'd be like, if I try one more time, I'm gonna come off too salesy.
He's
I'm
gonna like
leave.
throw some hands.
Yeah, but
I think like another aspect of sales is it's literally in everything. Like people don't realize that like every job, every career, whatever it may be, like in some aspect of what you're doing day to day, like you're either selling yourself, you're selling an idea, you're selling a product. Like you're doing things like if you have to meet with your boss, you're usually selling what you're doing. Like whatever it is, like you usually have to convince or persuade in some fashion. And it's cool to like learn the psychology behind it because there is good ways and there's ways that really aren't the best, you know?
Yeah, like I haven't read the whole book. I've kind of like picked through it. I do that with a lot of books, but The Way of the Wolf is the sales book that Jordan Belfort wrote. And like at the beginning of the book in like the first chapter, I think he's like, I'm going to go through a ton of tools that are going to be really useful to like get sales. But then it has this part where it's like, I write your name, like promise not to use this to manipulate people in negative ways or something. And then he has you like sign it with your signature. Cause you know, he did, cause he says, and in it he says like, and if you do, then you deserve the same like treatment I had, which like he was in prison for 10 years, you know? So yeah, cause he started cold calling people, selling them penny stocks. Like that's the story. He got on Wall Street selling people penny stocks, like talking them up way big. Be like, oh, dude, this is the best penny stock. This is the best stock you can get into right now. And it would just be like some trash like company that some kid was starting and screwed a ton of people over. Became really rich off of it. Went to prison, served his time, and now he like teaches sales. But he's like, if you use this to screw people over like I did, then you deserve to go to prison just like I did. So he's cool. But yeah, it's like there's so many psychological skills that you learn that you're just like, you can learn how to improve your relationships drastically with communication, you know?
Yeah.
It's interesting. Like I'm coming at this from more of a business perspective because that's a lot of the classes I'm taking. I don't have any like necessarily sales experience like outside of a mission, but it's interesting. Like in sales, like specifically marketing, a lot of the things we talk about in my classes, like marketing, like the way you phrase or word things can like have a huge influence on like the way that they perceive you. Like you could say like 99% of people wash their left hand first and the right hand. You put that on the bathroom mirror at Walmart and they'll be like, oh, like if I wash my right hand first, like I'm weird or something like that. And it's like weird like manipulation like tricks. Instead of like saying please wash your hands, you could have just like manipulate that. And so like that, like what Reese is saying, like it's important to like a lot of these tools have real power to like to make a big difference. And so like you're saying, like it can make a big impact on your relationship and being able to be a clearer communicator.
In 12 Rules for Life, which I was just telling Sage and Carter, we were looking at Sage's like bookshelf. He has a ton of books. But 12 Rules for Life is written by Jordan Peterson, and one of the rules, so it's like each chapter's a rule. One of the rules is be precise in your speech. Yeah. And he talks about like the importance of what you say and how your words have real meaning and power, and like they have the power to create how you feel, and we know that how you feel determines how you act, and that determines your results. So I love that. It's like be precise in your speech, and he's very precise in his speech. Like he thinks things through before he says them, and so I think that's like, I feel like this little meeting here is like I'm kind of using this to help me kind of form my philosophy with sales, because I don't want it to be a numbers game. Like I get a little bit nervous sometimes, like when numbers start getting talked about in the office a lot, and I'm like, I understand they're really important, we need to talk about them, like we need to know where we're at, but some people, like in summer sales, some people just got really obsessed on the numbers. They'd be like, dude, how much did you get today? And it's like, if I got 1 that day, or like if I got 0 that day, I'd be like, oh dude, you know, like I'd like, and obviously it's like I chose to, I can see that, but but I felt dumb. I'm like, dude, I only got one.
I think that's honestly one of the hardest things about sales is like constantly comparing in your mind. Like I feel like you have to get to at some point, like, and I'm not even close to being there, but like having your mindset where you're not so worried about like what other people are doing. And it's hard in an organization or in a company where like it's a numbers games at time, like growing, it's a numbers games. You reach out to people and you get feedback type of a thing, and it's hard where like you're on a team and like numbers are thrown around where it's like, hey, like you guys got to be hitting these things.
Yeah, and
like,
it's all day. It's like, I mean, we're all in the same room. It's like, hey, how much you at?
Yeah.
And you're like 2 or 0. Or one day I was at like 7. I'm like 7. You know, and it's like, yeah. But another rule in 12 Rules for Life. I don't know it exactly, but it's compare yourself. I think it's like compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not to others. Yeah. And he goes through all that. And I mean, and that's like a principle we all say, but like he goes into depth into that principle. And I think that's why I keep getting drawn back to sales, even though part of it is like suffering sometimes.
It is. Like it beats you up, man.
Yeah, it totally does. And so it's like I knew what I was getting into with this job, luckily, but I keep getting drawn back to because I think there's a lot of growth to be had. Yeah. If you choose to. I mean, you can let it beat your mind up, which admittedly I do some days, and then I go home and I just like tell Riley, I'm like, oh gosh.
Yeah.
It's like, bro,
no, dude, I feel you. Like,
I don't want to go back.
No, like it's hard, and I feel like the biggest thing with sales, like, of course you're helping people, you're allowing to pitch things, you're learning things about yourself, but like a reason like I somewhat want to go into sales is like the sky's the limit. Like that's what I love about it. Yeah, like some companies, there's commission structures where you put in the work and you're gonna reap rewards. You know, like
that's how pest control was.
Yeah,
it was like in pest control, it was like the more you start to sell. So like let's say it was if you hit 50 sales, your commission went up 2%. Yeah, and on everything that you've sold so far. Yeah, and then so. It's like I sold over, I don't know, like 110 or something. So it's like my commission by the end of the summer, it started at like, let's say, you know, it started at 10. By the end of the summer, it was at 16. Oh, wow. So it's like, it's cool how sales is like, because I worked construction, you know, for 3 months. And like, dude, that job, it was amazing, like what I learned. But I don't know how people do that for their whole lives, because it's like some days I would work way harder than my coworker, and some days he would work way harder than me. And at the end of we got paid weekly. It's like every week we got paid the same. Yeah. But in sales, it's like if you want to make more money, then you can. Dude. That's what I really like about it.
That's the whole thing. It's like I've told my wife many times, like, sweetheart, I'm gonna be in a career where like I am in control of like my fate, type of a thing, where like I'm not in this job where I just have a set salary. I know how much is coming in. Like I want a job where like, to me, it's a game. I'm out there getting it. I'm out there. Feels like a game. It is. We talked about that. Sales is like a game.
No, it's interesting. I was in a business meeting with I'm in one of my classes, entrepreneurship seminar, and they'll just come in and talk about their businesses. Cool. It's like the easiest class ever. It's literally a seminar. I'm like, this is awesome. But I was talking to her, and she said, like, a lot of people think that it's safer to have one of those jobs where you just come in, you clock in at 9, leave at 5. Because she's like, well, you know, some people's mindset is just like, well, you know, it's always going to be there. But it's like, you're not in control. Like, no. I would much rather be in a situation where I'm in control, because I would bet on myself more than I would, you know, some random CFO, you know, 10 levels above me, because I really don't have control of what he does. So I like what you're saying, like, with sales or in business, like it's kind of up to you, and it's like I would rather, like, if it's my fault, like I'll admit that, but I'd rather like fail because of myself instead of like, oh hey, you get laid off and then you're like, well shoot, like what do I do now?
Yeah, it's high risk, high reward type of a thing. Like, you know what you're getting yourself into. You're gonna have years where you might have a killer year, and you'll have years like I know personally some people that this year with COVID, for some sales jobs, it was really hard on them. But like the fact that they saved in prior years, that they did well, like they were able to. It's just a mindset of knowing how to use your money, type of a thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I just had a thought. in the book. It's a book written by C.S. Lewis. It's the only one I've read of his. I want to read some more of his. I've heard they're really good. But it's called the Screwtape Letters. I read it on my mission. So it's in a nutshell, the book is letters from a demon, and he writes them to his nephew. So it's taking the side of the devil.
Yeah.
Like getting to know how his mind works so you can know the enemy. And so it's like this master tempter is training his nephew, and so Screwtape writes letters and is teaching him how to tempt humans, basically.
It's actually kind of a cool, like...
Yeah, it's a really cool book because...
No, I've just heard from my companions the premise.
It's really cool to kind of see, you know the enemy, you know his playbook, you know what to expect. But one of the letters that Screwtape is writing to his nephew is, he says, you need to get the human that, like, Wormtail's the nephew's name. He's assigned to a human, and he has to, like, work with this human while the human's alive. And his goal is to get him to stop believing in God and, like, hate himself and run his life into the ground. And he's like, you need to get the human to believe that the law of undulation, like it's an eternal law, it's a universal law of undulation, meaning there's ups and there's downs, and that's normal. In fact, if your life isn't going up and down, then something may be seriously wrong. And he says you need to get the human not to believe in the law of undulation anymore. So meaning the human needs to think that life's either going to be like, once things start to go good, they're going to be going good forever, or if they're just they're going to be forever, or if they start going down, then they're going downhill forever. And it's interesting because Screwtape says, he's like, if the human's in a trough, if they're down in a trough, then you need to make them believe that that's God's fault. And if they're on a high, then you need to make them believe excuse me, that they don't need God. So but anyways, sales undulates so much. Like, you can go in, do the exact same thing, because like 2 weeks ago I had a day, we were counting demos, so it's like understandable, but minus the demos, I had, I think, 8 sets.
Oh wow.
And then it's like yesterday I had 0 sets. And it's like you can go in and do like the exact same thing and just nothing happens. And that can be really hard. But if you remind yourself, like I'm reminding myself right now, it's like life undulates, it goes up and down. And I like this one, I can't remember who said this one teacher said, when it undulates, it resembles a heart rate going up and down, and if it stops, then it represents a flat line or death.
That's
so it's cool. Like, if your life's going up and down, if you're having highs and lows, not if they're too drastic, something might be wrong. You might have some personality disorder or something. But if they're having good days, having bad days, then you're alive, you're human.
That's kind of a cool, I like that.
That's my little like 5-minute spiel.
I have a question for you guys. So like, my situation's like a little bit different because being a seminary teacher, like I try and leave a lot of the outside world outside of my job, which is like kind of backwards because usually you try and leave your job like at your job. But one thing that like has been like, you guys are talking about, like you have like good days, but then you have bad days. And so like for me, I've been trying to figure out, how to not let, like, when I'm personally having a hard time, like let that come into like into my work. But I think for most people, it's like, how do you let those bad days not come into your life? So like, how have you guys kind of handled, let's say you have a bad sales day and you come home, how do you not let that affect, your relationship with your spouse, or like you like have a unproductive rest of the evening? Like, what are some of the things you guys have done to try and overcome maybe some of those like harder days where you're not as successful?
Like for me, the biggest thing, like one of the biggest blessings I've had is marriage. Like just having that. Yeah. Like honestly, and I'm sure Reese can like attest to it. Like just coming home and having like like your companion, your best friend that like you literally can tell anything to. Like sometimes I'll be so happy I'll talk to her. Sometimes I'll complain, and like she's such a good listener. And like I don't know, I feel like just being able to have that companionship, and also just going on like the spiritual side of things, like I guess just understanding like the big plan of life, like I feel like once you understand like, hey, like we're here to grow, we're here to progress. Like in the gospel, we make mistakes, we repent. In life, we make mistakes, we're able to like repent symbolically, whatever it may be, and like get through those hard times. And I feel like a big part of it is like we long for relations, and I feel like friendships, relationships, those are the things that like can help us get through things. And like our relationship with God through prayer, I feel like just connections with different people, with our Heavenly Father, things like that really gets us through hard days. And like relying on prayer, like with seminary, I feel like that's just a huge thing, because you're gonna have huge like hard days, but like at the end of the day, like seminary teachers, I think, are one of the most important jobs for kids at that age, because they're trying to figure out their lives. They're trying to figure out where they're at, who they are, their testimonies. And like, in my mind, seminary teachers are like really important instruments for God. Like he's using you guys consistently to like bring.
Seeing these kids
Yeah.
for 80 minutes every other day, for 6 consecutive months. Like I'm like,
That's a lot of time that adds up.
yeah, and I'm
it
like,
adds
I don't
up.
want to mess this up, because like I not that my seminary teachers messed it up. It was more so like I wasn't there for maybe the right reasons or whatever. Maybe it was like a cute girl, so I'm like, I'm gonna go to class. But like, I want to take as much advantage of that. So like, I like how you're saying like being able to use the relationships of the people you have around you to support you.
Yeah.
To like, because like you're not meant to like have to try and like bear your cross. That's a term, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to do
Yeah.
it alone. Like even like Jesus let people help him when he needed to. So I like that, and of not trying to be like this prideful kid and being like, oh, I have all the answers, I can do this myself, but being like, Mom, I had a really tough day, or
No, yeah.
Dad, I like that.
That's why we're all here,
Yeah, and I think honesty, like, I don't know, maybe if you feel like it'd be appropriate, but like maybe tell your class if you're cool with them. Just be like,
Yeah.
yo, today, y'all, like, I'm just kind of out of it. I'm sure you have those days, so like we're gonna do our best today.
Yeah.
Go from there. And it's like, I think it at least like if I was a student, if my seminary teacher said that,
Yeah.
he's like, but I'm happy to be here and I'm happy to be with you guys. Like, that would mean a lot. I feel like, instead of just like, I feel like Mr. Anderson's kind of off today.
No, yeah.
It's like, at least he could be like, yo, look, I'm Brother Clutch Carter _5. That's follow him on Instagram.
Yeah. I mean, I look back, and this is more of like the seminary side, but like I look back, and some of the most like impactful times, or times I remember in seminary, is when my teacher was real with us. Like there was a time a seminary teacher, at the time he was a stake president and a seminary teacher. He's actually a mission president now, but he basically shared this story. He's like, guys, like today was kind of a hard day, and like he told us kind of like what was going on, and it was really personal. I'm not saying like to do that, but I'm just saying like he was real with us.
All my transgressions ever, and they're like, oh.
Yeah, it was just something to do with like his daughter and something, but he was just like he started crying, and I think like the whole class was like, dang, like our seminary teacher, he's a real person. Like he's not just this guy that shows up with a suit and tie and teaches us the Book of Mormon. Like he's a real person. He feels things. Like this is real,
Yeah, we had. Sorry, I got one thing to say. So, Trent this morning. So Trent's my boss, and he used to be Sage's, but he works in the same building as Sage and I. But he's a dad of 4, and he's such a funny guy, man.
Yeah.
He's just clowning all the time. But randomly this morning, he'll just yell something out of his office like randomly. And he's like, was anyone else just like a total D-bag to their moms growing up? And I was like, oh gosh. I was like, dude, I've like sassed to my mom too much growing up, and I feel so bad now.
Ever make your mom cry?
Oh god. Probably.
I have,
Yeah.
It's a hard thing, man.
Yeah, and so it's like, but at the time, as a one, you're just like a screwed up teenager, but you also like see your parents, at least I did, as almost like inhuman, like oh yeah, mom just like, you don't notice what they do, because Trent was like, if my sons, because he has 4 sons, he's like, if they ever mouth off to my mom, I forget what he said, probably something inappropriate, but he's like, I will not let them, because he's like, moms do so much, and I'm just like, yeah, see, they almost seem inhuman, and it's like, dang, like mom has emotions. Like you start to grow up, you're like, wait, mom gets sad or like tired or sick, because like I remember one Christmas my mom had like a really like 101 fever or something one Christmas Eve, and our family friends from California were here, so it was like a big Christmas. She was making like soup all day and like having a good time, and then like just this year she's like, yeah, that one Christmas I had a really high fever and like just had to do it. I'm like, dang, like I was 12 and I had zero clue.
Yeah.
And I don't know, so it's just like vulnerability. I think some people kind of get obsessed with the idea of being vulnerable, and they can kind of take it too far. I think anything can be kind of taken too far, but vulnerability is important.
Yeah.
You know, like, hey, I'm a human, you're a human. We all have sucky days. We all have really good days. Like, let's connect here at a deeper level, you know?
That's what you just said. Like, I think at times vulnerability, like, breeds connection. Like, I think of, like, companionships where, like, you sat down and you had, like, a real conversation or a hard conversation. Like, that brought you closer together type of a thing. Or, like, whatever it may be with, like, your wife. Like, if you guys have a disagreement and you sit down and, like, say, hey, let's talk about this. Like, I feel like things like that, like, hey, sweetheart, like, this is hurting me, or hey, this is tough for you. Like, let's talk about it. Like, it breeds connection where you're able to, like, get through it together.
And it's, like, kind of scary to have conversations like that. But what's scarier is what will happen if you don't have those conversations. So
if you keep it in.
Yeah, if you just hold it. So it's like, there's this funny example of, like, if your spouse, I mean, Riley and I don't have this issue, but I guess some people do. But, like, if your spouse squeezes the toothpaste in a way that you don't like let's say they squeeze it from the middle and you're like a total do it from the end and roll it up as it goes type of person, some people will just like, this will explain the principle, but some people will just like hold it in. They're just like, oh, whatever, and they start to let that form a tiny little wedge between their relationship. But it's like, look, if you just have a 30-second conversation, like, look, hey, can we just squeeze it from the top? Like, I understand you're used to that, but like if we just do it from the top, like things will be easier. And it's like, most likely they're going to be like, oh, yeah, dude, not a problem. But people, and you know, that's kind of a silly example. And there's obviously more real examples where the conversation is like, you almost like dread it. But it's like, think about what could happen, or what will happen, I should say, if you don't have the conversation. And that'll almost drive you to have the conversation like instantly, because that result that would happen should scare you more than having the conversation, you know? Because like Riley and I today, we've been married for a month, and it's like we've already had a lot of hard conversations, because you have to. It's like you're a companionship, you're a partnership, you're no longer just friends. You're friends on a deep, you're no longer just one person. It's like now you're a companionship. Like you,
in God's eyes, you're one. Like
you are one, and you need to
sealed as one,
act as one, become one, and you're still your own person, obviously.
Definitely.
But it's like you have to have open communication, or else your marriage is screwed.
In all of my marriage experience, I found it. No, I'm just kidding. Found it really helpful to do this. So I'm gonna give you guys advice. No, I'm just kidding. But I just think, like, is it really worth, ruining a relationship or a friendship because you're uncomfortable to have like if you think about it, any hard conversation, usually you're like done with it like maximum like 10 minutes, and then you're like kind of sitting there like, okay, I think we're good. But then
we've all
we were talking about that the other day. We were like, really, when you think about it, we were like hashing out like all the differences from our missions. Like maybe took like an hour, but it was like a huge conversation. It's like if we never had that conversation, like it's like kind of scary to think like where the missions like would have been when they merged. But then like you think about it, you're like, am I really like too prideful to say, all right, this 10-minute conversation, my uncomfortability come in the way of a very special relationship? I mean, there's also a point where it's like, also you kind of just have to let things roll sometimes. Like sometimes things just aren't, just, I don't know, but there's a balance you got to find.
Like when you think about it, like sometimes that can ruin a relationship for life. Like for some reason you'll hold something in your head like, oh, like they don't like me or something, and then like you just leave that alone. And like I've seen people in families or relationships where they'll hold these grudges, or like they'll keep things in, and like it like can ruin relationships for life. Like they'll just live with it. And it's like, just like you guys are saying, like being able to be open and like just have a conversation that may be tough. Like could turn some things around. Like I remember me and you've had some sit downs on our mission where we're like, yo, like let's talk type of thing. And like I feel like that's needed, you know, like it's hard, but it brings a connection in life that you need.
Yeah, and it also brings clarity, which is like, in order to move forward in life in a positive way, you need clarity, like clarity where you're going, clarity where you've been, clarity how you got there, what's going on right now. I mean, most of your life is run off of your subconscious, like you're not even conscious of it. So it's like you got to sit down, figure out what you're doing. And yeah, it's like once you do that, and you do that with, you know, your coworker or your business partner or your spouse. And like I was talking to my brother. So me and Zach, who's my older brother, we're the only ones married in the family now so far. And him and his husband are like amazing. Like they're really strong. They got married in October. Yeah. But me and Riley went over to their house like 2 weeks ago, and I was talking to Zach, and Riley was talking to Chase in the other room. But me and Zach just had a conversation about marriage and just about how like it's really this deep partnership. And Jordan Peterson talks about marriage in a really spiritual sense.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And he talks about how marriage is you're meant to contend, and don't take that word in the wrong way, not fight with negative intent, but contend meaning hash things out, you know, get clear on things, and you're meant to do that with your partner over and over and over again because it refines you as a human being. And he's like, you know, it can be hard to have a good partner sometimes, because if your partner's good, you'll know so because they'll call you out like on your BS.
Yeah.
You know, and like Riley and I have had open communication about that, to like set those expectations. Like, hey, if you see me start spiraling down, like with these little funny negative patterns that come up in my life when I get stressed out, like please call me out on it, because I'm probably not noticing. And I need you to be like, hey dude, like you're kind of being a bum right now. Like, you know, obviously not say it like that, but be like, hey, look, here's what's happening. Here's what I'm noticing. What should we do from that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
you can go.
No, I was just gonna say, I think like obviously like I'm not married, so I don't have someone to do that with, but it's like important to have those conversations with yourself too, like being real with yourself and figuring out where you're at. Like you're saying, like it's so important to know like where you stand in life, just like in general, like having those self-reflective moments. Like that's one of the reasons I love the sacrament, is like it's like a time, and it's like obviously different with COVID because it's not as long anymore, which kind of makes me sad sometimes, but like you get time to like self-reflect on where you're at, or like your personal study time or your prayers at night, like being able to like figure out where you're at and have an honest conversation, like be like, hey dude, like you're stinking at waking up on time, like or you're getting lackadaisical and you're exercising, or you're
Dang, that's a good one.
Yeah, man, I like that.
No big deal. I just looked up words today with that. No, I'm just kidding.
Cool words.
I'm pretty sure I only know that because like sports broadcasters will be like, they're getting really lackadaisical with the ball, and I'm like, oh, that's a big word. No.
Hey, shout out Utah Jazz #1.
Yeah.
And they're not even getting any love.
Not
right
getting
now,
any.
man.
Did you hear Steve Kerr said that they're the Warriors where they were 4 or 5 years ago?
Are you
So
serious?
he was like, they're at a place where they could win a championship.
wow.
I was like, dang. This is too bad LeBron's still around.
Dude, I don't like LeBron. Bro.
You know what? We're okay. It's fine. We're not gonna get into this conversation. But anyway, he's the GOAT. But no.
No, he's not.
Yeah, Cameron punches me through the mic. We kind of got into it in our last one.
Yeah, with the podcast with Cameron, brought it up.
Yeah.
Barely, and he was like, "We're not even gonna get into this."
Dude, I can't. I'm not getting into that.
Yeah,
Bro.
maybe another podcast we can do as a sports debate.
We
But
could have like a controversial podcast where we just talk about controversial things.
people
But
would listen to
To
it.
go back to like what we were saying, like self-reflecting things like that, a thought came to my mind of like how easy it is in life nowadays, especially with the technology, social media, like how easy it is to get distracted and become complacent.
Like
with
we
what
just got
life
distracted.
is. Well, yeah, like definitely. But I'm saying like people are so easy, like they depend on their phone, like when they're feeling things. Like I think we've had conversations about like the dopamine release of like the addiction with phones. Yeah. Yeah. And it's just huge. Like it's like it distracts you from self-reflection or prayer or meditation or whatever it is to like kind of awake yourself individually or with a relationship with your spouse, whatever it is. I just feel like if you don't use it correctly, like technology or social media can really distract you. And I think the adversary has done a really good job of doing that, not only spiritually, but just in life generally, like just distracting us from connection. Like it can really ruin that sometimes.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, the whole psychology of technology. We could get into that one day.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, it's like, what was I gonna say? Oh, there's this. So I just did this like little masterclass thing. It was like an hour and a half. This one, the owner of this self-development company called Mindvalley, he has like different masterclasses by a lot of different people on his website or whatever, and he just has this new one out, and so he did like a free hour and a half kind of precursor to it, just to kind of give you an idea what it would be talking about, and then you could purchase it if you'd like. But anyways, I'm not gonna get into it all right now because it would take me longer than 15 minutes, and that's how much time we have left. But he does say that, so as humans, we all are existing on different levels, different vibrations, different levels of consciousness, and there's like 4 levels, just to make it simple in your mind, and it is a spectrum. So there's 1.1, 1.2, 1.23, but most of humanity's living in level 1, and level 1 is the victim mentality, subtitle living in the culture scape. So it's like the culture scape is like what you're saying, getting tied up in social media trends, like to the point where it's totally trapped you in this web of the cult. Anyway, so it's like in the belief, so he kind of goes through each belief in each level. The belief in level 1 is life happens to me. And I was thinking, and I'm like, if there's a lot, I think we all know people. So I'll give you this. Level 2 is the awakening, where you understand that your thoughts have something to do with your reality, and you start to play with that. But level 1, you just think life happens to you. And I was like, I don't think everyone in level 1 is like bad off. No. Like there's a few guys at work I was thinking I think they're in level 1, but they're happy guys. They work hard. They have good relationships. So it doesn't mean like, oh, if you're in level 1, you're screwed. You're not enlightened. Like da-da-da. But it is easy to get entangled in the culture scape, whatever, So it's like, culture scape is just like the word he uses for just like how, so the way I think about it is how loud and in your face and confusing and entangled this whole culture is.
Like the trends going on, and people are so
politics and the trends, and everyone's just like can't stop and slow down and evaluate where their life is at. They're just and life is happening to me. That's the belief. It's my boss. That's why I hate my job. It's it's my wife. That's why it's this for that. It's a blame game. So that's how you know if someone's in level 1. But I don't know. It just reminded me of that. So that's kind of like, I was thinking you and I could talk about that tomorrow. But
that's kind of cool.
But yeah, it's like getting distracted. And one thing that any psychiatrist and psychologist will teach you is that if you are trying to move forward in life and it's like really hard, so like January 1st, gym memberships go through the roof. Yeah. March, people fall off. So like my mom's been going to a gym in Logan consistently. This is her 5th year now, and she's like, from January to March there's a spike, in March it dies back down, and it's kind of like our gym again, as she says. But it's because those people haven't figured out how they got into their current circumstance in the first place. So it's really important to go back into your past, which is a scary thing because there's a lot of like negative, scary stuff back there. And that's why a lot of people don't want to go back into their past. But it's really important to go back into your past, figure out how you got to where you're at in the first place before you can move forward. Yeah. And I mean, I think that's a true principle throughout all of life. But I just think like if you are somebody who's trying to move forward in life and you just feel like something's tugging on you and it's preventing you from, moving forward, then it's probably because something is tugging on you in the past and you got to go resolve it, if that makes sense. Yeah. But
No, just like in our last couple of minutes, I just think a lot of our target audience is like kids our age or even like a little bit younger or older, just like around our age of like late teens or early 20s. And so I was wondering, Sage, like if you were to go back and tell yourself like your like out of high school self, like before you'd gone on your mission, before you had, you know, gotten a lot of really good professional experience, like what's some advice you would give yourself before moving into kind of that stage of life, or like, or just people in general that are entering that stage of life or kind of in that stage of life?
Honestly, like the biggest thing, probably one of the biggest things I learned on my mission that like I didn't really realize until probably a third of the way through, halfway through, is like really this life is just learning how to love people, learning how to like bring value to people's life, making them feel important. And I feel like one of the biggest like things with that is learning to love yourself. I just feel like at any age, especially at our age, like we feel confident in who we are and things like that, but learning to love other people, learning to love yourself. I mean, that's a doctrine in the gospel, whatever it may be, but I feel like believing in yourself, believing in others is like the biggest thing in this life. And like to make it full circle, like we're here to connect with other people, with our spouse, with friends, family, and I really think it comes down to just like love, you know. And I guess like you can sum it up with that. I mean, I've had difficult times. Like high school was really hard for me.
Except you were a baller.
Yeah.
Played like every
Yeah.
sport.
No, yeah, I love sports. Like it was hard for my family. We just went through kind of a tough time, but like I learned through that everyone is imperfect. People make mistakes. You don't know what people are going through, and if you learn to love it at a younger age, like I feel like that breeds success. Like what you bring out and like what value you give to others, the value will come back. It's just like it's the law of attraction. It's just that law that like what you put out in the world will come back.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite scriptures to share with people that haven't learned too much about like the importance of that principle. Reese introduced it to me, but I think it's Alma 31:14, 41. It's the last verse in the chapter, but it talks about that which you do send out shall come back to you again, and it's like once you understand that, you start to, and it feels a little bit weird because you're like, well, I want good things to come back to me, so I'm going to do things. So it feels a little bit selfish, but it's really not. When you start to understand that principle is true, it starts to change your life. It starts the way you treat it starts to change the way you treat people. It starts to change your work ethic, because you're like, well, if I'm working hard, like either people will start to work hard for me, or I'll be able to see success. And so like I like how that's like one of the main things. If I would have known that, like coming out of high school, man, like that would have changed everything.
Yeah. And I feel like I don't even fully understand what that means yet. Like I'm still like I read books like The Giver. I read books like Give, Love, whatever, and I feel like I'm not even like living that quite yet. Like I'm trying to figure out what that means, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
And like applying it type of a thing.
Yeah, I think like my final thought would be I feel like each podcast, because for any of those wondering, we don't have any particular we're not following any topics. Yeah, there's no script or topics or anything. It's just kind of like Sage asked me today at work. He's like, "What are we even going to talk about?" I was like, "I don't know, man. Whatever happens." Yeah. And I know they get kind of scattered, and like, you know, one of us will bring up a thought that kind of has nothing to do with what we were just talking about, but it, you know, in the end it's all valuable. But I feel like each one's had an overlying theme, and it seems like this one is connecting with each other. And I just think that's really important, is like we need to just connect with each other with love, like Sage was saying, like with love, connect with each other. And the principle that's very cliche, but I don't know if you noticed, but things that are cliche usually have a lot of meaning. But the principle of you don't know what people are going through is just incredibly true. Like, cannot stress that enough. You do not know what people are going through. It's like as missionaries, you saw these other missionaries at Zone Conference, and it wasn't until you were with them as a companion that you learned about their life. Like I saw Sage all around my mission. It wasn't until we were companions that I knew what you went through in high school, and I knew what you were going through preparing to go home. And I'm like, man, I don't have to worry about that. Like that's never, and that's hard, and I don't know what that's like. It's like you don't know what people are going through, and that's really, really true. So just learn to give up your ego. Wim Hof, one of my heroes, Iceman is his nickname. He says before he goes on hikes with a bunch of people, he says, "No ego, we go." So it's like a funny little jingle, but I try to remember that. I'm like, there's no ego. Like in the office, if we're selling, there's no ego. We go. If Steven gets 10 sales, then that's good for the company we're with. No ego, we go. And it's like, we're all in this together. We're all humans. We all need to love one another.
Yeah, no, I would just add on to that final thought of in adjusting to missionary life. One of the, I don't think I remember anything in that book except for this quote, but it talks about how when you truly start to understand someone and get to know them and start to really connect with them, everything they do starts to make sense. As I got to know Reese, or as I got to know Sage, or just other companions, you start to get to know them and you understand why they do certain things, and it brings so much more empathy into your life and so much more care and understanding. So maybe that's we challenge people to, as you watch this, if you made it to the end, number one, we love you. And that probably means you're my wife because you love me and you wanted to listen to me. But we would challenge you to try and reach out and connect with someone that maybe you haven't for a while, or someone you feel like you're lacking connection with right now that maybe used to be there. Because it really does make a difference. When you're able to make a real connection with someone, that's where life is fun, is when you're able to start making real connections. So I like that.
My last thing is if someone's wronged you, or if you're in a situation where it's just tough, just something my wife always tells me is just give them the benefit of a doubt. You don't know, just what Reese and Carter has been saying, you don't know what they're going through, just give them the benefit of a doubt. You don't necessarily know the situation, but just choose to forgive them if you can. But
I like that. Well, thank you for coming on. We appreciate you allowing us to come into your beautiful home, and it smells really good. So it's Vanilla and Sage candle by, who's it by? White Barn.
White Barn, man.
Shout out to White Barn, not a sponsor yet. Soon. But yeah, no, we appreciate that and your insights. So
thanks, guys. It's been fun.
We'll drop his social media handle so you can give him a follow, and we'll again hit the subscribe button, and we'll see you guys later.
Sweet.
Bye.